Welcome to Biz Alchemy, a podcast about creating a new business paradigm by women, for women. I'm your alchemical host, Jacquelyn Atkins, and I'm going to take you on an extraordinary adventure to create a business filled with ease, fun, spaciousness, and abundance. Hustle, be gone. Let's birth a new way. Hello, and welcome to Biz Alchemy. I am so thrilled to have you here. In fact, I'm pretty thrilled to have me here. I first had the idea of a podcast 3 years ago, and the idea sort of dropped away after a while, but it wasn't the right time for me to create a podcast then. When I think about where my business is at now and what I share now and where I'm at personally as well, 3 years ago, my podcast would have been very, very different to this. So I'm glad I waited because I'm so excited about the message that I'm sharing. I'm excited about creating a new paradigm of business, created by women, for women. Now, something I want to clarify here right at the beginning. I call the old model of business the patriarchal model. And it is patriarchal in that it was created by men for men. And, that system has developed over hundreds of years. And at that point, it was mostly men who were working. Very few women would have been in business. It's only been recently, maybe in the last 50 years, women have moved into business. But since the online world, many, many more women have gone on to create their own businesses. And here's where the struggle has been, is that we are creating these businesses on a model that was designed for men. It's not that model is wrong. And in fact, many men thrive in that model. And obviously, many women have also been successful in that model. But at what cost? What parts of themselves have they had to hide for that success? And so when I talk about a new paradigm of business, I am talking about a paradigm of business where women can bring all of who they are to the table. It's a balance of the yin energy with the yang energy, because the yang is still required to be in business. The yang is the action. You cannot be in business without action. But it's this beautiful integrated model with the yin and the yang marrying, becoming whole, and there's so much power in that for you. So that is what I'm going to be sharing with you in this podcast. Excited? I'm really, really thrilled to have you on the journey. So thank you for joining. So let me share a little bit about me, Jacquelyn Sue Atkins. I'm someone who has always lived life on my terms. I take new paths, and they don't have to be proven. They just have to feel right for me. Even as a child, my mum says that just because everyone else was going to this party or doing some particular, say, excursion at school and they were excited about it, it's like, oh, this is amazing. If I didn't feel like I wanted to be there, I would just say to Mum, no, I don't want to go. That it didn't happen a lot, but it happened when I really didn't feel that it was right for me. And it wasn't done with a whole lot of, fanfare. It was just, I was fairly quiet as a child, and it was just like, no, that's not right for me. So I'm just going to do this thing. And you know what? I've pretty much led my life like that. And even when I've tried to fit in and conform, so I felt like when I finished school, I was doing a lot of drama. I would have loved to have gone on into acting, but there was this part of me that was like, no, you need to pick a profession that you'll have work in after. And so I became a physiotherapist instead, because I was always into healing. So in that point, I picked I picked the path that was sort of the most predictable, that was the most expected, and it served me well for a few years. But you know how it served me well is that once I'd graduated, I finished at 21, I could head off around the world and work and travel and get really good paying work. And I had some amazing jobs. I worked in Harley Street in London, and I had an incredible time. So I created my own path from that. And then when I started to feel really confined and restricted by physiotherapy, I moved into hospitality. And then my first child was born, my son. And after his birth, I felt such a strong urge to stop working and to be at home with him. And it was at that time where my journey inward started. I think for many women, that's often the case. And then I studied pranic healing. I did a weekend course, and then I sort of did the advanced course because I really enjoyed it. But I only used it, on the kids. It was more just for my knowledge, really, and to expand my paradigm rather than actually to use as a business. I was happy at home. My two daughters followed soon after my son. I sort of had three under 4. And I really absorbed myself in this energetic paradigm. Anyway, around the time, just before my third child was born in 2002, we moved to Byron Bay. I was so drawn to be here, and I'm still here now. And that was a whole explosion in my head, because Byron at that time was, the capital of healers. There was healing for every sort of thing you could possibly do. It's changed a lot now, but it was very woo in those days. And I was just exposed to so many different forms of healing. And Grace, my youngest, was born 5 weeks after we moved here. And sometime between us moving here and her being born, I went to a New Age festival, and I was having a sound healing by a lady who was obviously was a sound healer, sang, and amazing voice. And she was giving me a reading and using this sound. And towards the end of the session, she said to me, "You can do this." And I just went tingles all over, like, oh my God. And yet my voice went, if the voice in my head just went, "You can't sing. There is no way you can do this." But I sort of came away from that session going, oh my God, maybe I could, because there was part of me felt so alive by that thought. So I started to sing in the car, like sound, bring sounds through. My poor children, fortunately, they were very young. And they just went, "Oh, there's mum," which they've done their whole life. So gradually, as I did more sounding, this voice sort of came through me that was quite different, and at times it could be quite operatic. And around this time I started to I had a fairy shop, sold all things fairy. I was so into the earth and nature spirits. And I started to do a little bit of healing using the pranic healing. And then I began to bring the sound through as well. And I could really I had a sense that the energy was moving really much more effectively using the sound, because sound is a vibration and it can really break up energy. And the more I did the sound, I actually moved my blocks in my third eye and started to open up my clairvoyance, and as well as my clairaudience. So that was so exciting, because I began to see things and I began to hear. What I hear is my voice. I hear messages, but in my voice, in my head. And so that was that was life-changing for me. And over the years, I've never really turned that into a business. I had a few clients. I used to run meditations. I loved doing it. But then there were periods of my life where I had many years off that. But then what happened? I was working as a physio in aged care. And 6.5 years ago now, I had a message from a man who I had met in 2007 in France, saying that he'd always loved me and would I love to Skype. And so that was a turning point. So I messaged Mark and we ended up chatting, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we want to be together. He's English. He lived in England. I lived in Australia. We both had children. So we actually connected a couple of months later. We connected in France again and said, okay, we want to make this happen. What are we going to do? And so we did. We just made it happen. He was living there. I was living here. I went over as much as I could. My kids were older at this stage and they could stay with their dad when I was gone. And Mark came out occasionally as well. And so we did this. But what happened is I had to give up my career in aged care and didn't really have a way of making money. I needed something that I could just take with me. So that's when I explored the online world. That's when I realized that with the gifts I had from my healing, I could move into coaching. So I did an intuitive life coaching course with an academy in the States. It was a wonderful, wonderful course. And I came out of that like, yep, here I am. I'm ready. I'm ready as a life coach. And it was slow to get started. I did what many new coaches do, which is say, I can help your money problems, your business problems, your relationship problems, and, no niching whatsoever. And so I didn't have a voice. My voice wasn't heard. And then 6 months or so into that, I had this insight. Oh my gosh, what about that energy healing stuff I used to do? And so I started to include it in my sessions. And within a matter of a couple of months, the coaching had pretty much gone and I was there fully showing up as an energy healer. And I would work with the energy body of female entrepreneurs, particularly connected to their throat chakra and why they had trouble speaking in the online world, why they had trouble sharing who they were. And that was amazing. That opened everything up for me. And the business I have now is based on that. Pretty soon after, I was walking on the beach. The beach is my place, right? I love the beach. It's very close to where I live now. And in fact, right now, I have just come from the beach and I'm standing here wet doing this in my cozies. So this is the joy of podcasting over videos. So I was walking on the beach and it suddenly hit me. Wow, maybe a business has an energy body. I thought, it would be an entity and all entities have an energy body. And so I contacted a friend and said, look, I've had this idea. Can I read the energy body of your business? And she was like, yes. And that's where it all began. So I looked at her business. I saw that it definitely had its own energy. It was different to hers because I'd been working with her for a while. And so then I did a deep dive into working with businesses and the energy bodies of businesses. And I'll talk a lot more about that in the next episode, but that changed everything for me. And as I worked with those businesses, what I realized is that the businesses were showing me a new way of being in business. So because it was a business of one client, the business would often share with me one little bit of information that was really important for that client, but was a whole new way of doing things. And through doing, reading of a business after a business after a business, I have accumulated all this wisdom about that these businesses, the way that these businesses want to operate, the way that will serve them and serve their, owner, their co-creator, my clients, in a much more aligned way. So that's the story. That's what's got me here now. Gosh, there's way more. I took tours to sacred sites in France. There's so much, but you know what? I'm 53. There's a lot of stories by the time you get to 53. So they will come out over the podcast. So there's two things I just want to share about where this inspiration comes from. I mentioned about I get this from my clients, businesses. They show me this new way of being in business. But as I've also alluded to, my inspiration also comes from the beach. I am very connected. I have always been a beach babe. I grew up in southern Sydney and was on the beach in Cronulla all the time. And I know when I've been in England, I lived in London in my 20s, I struggled with the absence from the beach. It really feeds me. And what I've come to realize more recently are my walks on the beach. That's my meditation, like truly my meditation. I struggle a little bit to sit and meditate. When you're walking as women, it's our flow. Like when we're connected with our flow and we're connected with our earth, that's when we really come home. That's when we have that intuitive experience in the way that many people will get from meditation. But for women, walking and especially walking in nature really brings us home to our essence. And I certainly find that. And so as I'm walking on the beach, as my feet chakras are making contact with the sand and the water, the energy flows through me. So that's also where I've received a lot of the insights that I'm sharing with you, and I'm sure will continue to receive, because this is an evolving thing for me. This is a project that's ongoing, and I'm bringing you on this journey with me. This is an adventure. That's what we're having together. We're having an adventure. We're having fun. We're playing. And in fact, the purpose of this podcast is to make business fun, to bring in the alchemical component, to make magic in your business, to have an adventure in your business. That's what we're going to be exploring in Biz Alchemy. I am so excited to do this with you. So the podcast is going to be a little bit solo of me chatting with you, and also some interviews with wonderful women who are birthing this new form of business in their own way. We all have a different way of doing it. Mine is very energetically based because that's who I am. That is the work that I do. But oh my gosh, I've met some amazing women who are bringing through their unique voice in the unique form of their business. And it's a way that lights them up. It is a way that is easy, that is fun, that is expansive for them. And I'm sure you will learn so much from listening to their approach to business. So one final thing I'd like to chat about, because the next 5 episodes are going to follow on from this, is that I have created a philosophy that the new business paradigm is based on, and I've called it the beach philosophy. Of course, okay? You are going to get lots of beach energy through this podcast. I won't go into it now because, as I said, the next 5 episodes will break up this acronym. It's an acronym, and I'll cover the B, the E, the A, the C, and the H over the next 5 episodes. But basically, I'm going to bring you a little bit of business by the beach. Every week, I'm going to take you on an adventure. We're going to travel. We're going to explore the unknown. We're going to move into more of who we are. We're going to create our businesses to reflect that, to reflect our uniqueness. It's exciting. It's exciting. And it's a representation of who I am. As I said at the beginning, I like to live life on my terms. And I am not going to follow a model that is not aligned with me, that does not fill my life with joy. And I want exactly the same for you. So I shall see you in the next episode to start creating alchemy in your biz. Thanks for listening to Biz Alchemy. I'm Jacquelyn Atkins. If you enjoyed this show, I'd love it if you subscribed, shared with your friends, and left a review. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, head to jacquelynatkins.com. Until next time, enjoy creating alchemy in your biz.